Steve, we'll go to you for your take on the movie as a whole.
So initially watching this, I'd say the first half, I wasn't that into it because there's some huge holes in it that just sort of took me out of the movie. Right. Once I was like, well, you know what? Those aren't that big of a deal. Then I actually really started to enjoy this. Just it doesn't really go into the like sort of typical horror. It's the horror of what, you know, if you're a good person, which everybody thinks they're a good person,
right,
having to do awful things. Like, how do you reconcile that?
And he's definitely doing that deliberately, but his character is a priest.
Yeah, you can't get very much pure than that.
Right, exactly. They're like, this is a good person that has to do awful things to survive. And not just, it's not just there's that survival instinct that he's fighting against. So how do you reconcile that? And those questions are absolutely, it deals with them in such an amazing...
As you start to do these evil things, how does that affect you even more? Because then he, not only is this a priest who's just struggling with like having to suck people's blood to survive, which he seems to find like loopholes around it by sucking people who are in comas, but now he starts to have like the sexual desires.
Sexual drive is like hugely intensified.
Yeah.
And just every sort of base desire is intensified. Right. And so how do you, it's not just, you know, the vampire question of killing people. It's how do you, if your animal side or your, you know, that sort of reptilian part of you that comes to the forefront, can you still consider yourself a good person if you can't hold that back? You know, and so that question, and I thought the second half of this movie explored it really well. But there's a lot of sort of, you know, he gets the blood transfusion, and then it's never explained. There's no like, why? I mean, this is where maybe the way I expect storytelling to happen is different. But I expect to find out where that blood transfusion came from, and like the backstory there. You know, it takes like 3 months for it to affect him, but then it only takes
when he turns the girl.
Yeah, it only takes a few minutes to affect her.
Yeah.
So it sort of sems like there's a lot of flaws here, but then
he's also pumping the blood through her.
Well, yeah, but I
see where he's like,
yeah. He's creating a siphon through her body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get that far?
I don't believe so.
Did you get to where he turned her? Yeah.
No, I didn't get there.
That was creepy because I have no idea how they did that physical effect when he kills her. Because it's just him squeezing her head, and then her head just snaps back. Oh, and it's just laying there, and you're just like,
and the audio timing was perfect when they snapped the neck on that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's something that part of this, the way the story is told, is you've seen the Avengers trilogy. Part of it is the way that Chan-wook Park, he doesn't give you all the answers, especially up front. You know, so you have to kind of, I mean, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance is almost a silent film.
Yeah. Well, even Old Boy, you don't really figure out why he was placed in
a prison.
Well, I mean, that's the beginning. So why he's placed in this prison until the very end. And that's like a big portion of the movie. And you're like, what the hell is going on?
So it sounds
so you have to be really patient.
There's a lot of, like you were saying before, a lot of cultural differences on what we see and what we expect versus maybe how just overall their storylines.
Yeah. So something I love about this, and I mentioned while we were watching it, is they don't do, it always annoys me in things like True Blood and even Twilight and some of the newer Anne Rice films where like vampires have like super cool powers and they like go super fast and they're immensely strong, or they can like read minds and stuff like this. And I love that he uses like physical effects.
Like that's in here. Like they do have power, but the way he shows it is
the way that he shows it doesn't need to be like glitzier. Like there's a scene when they're running down the alley and she's trying to get away from him. And instead of in an American film, it would have been like, you would have seen the guy go like, and like catch up to her, and we're supposed to think that's cool.
Little after effects, like what's really cool after him or something.
Yeah, is you see she gets like she's a good like 300 feet away from him, and then the shot is just his feet are just right there, and he just picks her up, and she's trying to like run in the air, and so there's just this sense that it's much smarter filmmaking and it's cool.
It's because it's filmmaking for smarter people.
Yeah.
The True Blood and Twilight and Vampire Diaries, all that nonsense is for the tweenage girl.
Yeah.
So it's playing to their lust.
So what you're saying is that women aren't smart.
Yes.
What's kind of interesting to me is actually what Brian just said. Is that's the vampire for the teen, right? And we're gonna talk about the zombie vampire later. And this is the vampire somewhat for the person who wants to think more like intellectually. So it's interesting to me just that vampires can have that. They shouldn't be something that's so culturally relatable.
But like I said, different take on vampires. And we know that Brian has watched this whole movie, so we're going to turn to
See, this is...
Brian finishes a movie.
This is the kind of dumb, stupid, horror-ish movie that you...
Did you just call this movie a whore?
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
Yes, I did.
multiple syllables.
You can watch this movie in one night and just leave it. You don't feel bad about it, man. It's the movie's job.
It took me 3 sittings to watch this movie because my brain was like, no, you're not watching a movie this week. Screw you. But I did. I sat down and I fought through this one so I could actually be here today. Otherwise, I wasn't coming.
Much easier, I think, to watch this one.
It's a much easier movie to watch.
Yeah.
Because this is... The post-apocalyptic movie is... pretty standard. You can't really screw it up. And
but there's
you haven't seen Night of the Comet.
Yeah.
That was classic.
Oh, watch it again.
No, I don't. I don't want to ruin that memory.
That's how you screw it up.
I don't want to ruin that memory.
But I mean, there's
a dancing department store scene in that movie.
That sounds right up my alley. But this has everything that you need. It has the wandering stranger. It has the mentoring father-like role who's not actually the father. And then it has other characters that you pick up along the way and then you end up losing to death or whatever. Actually, death in every single one.
Yeah, predictable.
He's very much an archetype that you know,
he's
what path he's going to take.
The stranger who walks into town. Yeah,
he's the exact same character as Viggo Mortensen in The Road.
Right.
Almost the exact same trajectory.
As Woody Harrelson in Zombieland.
No.
No, yes.
Yeah.
He's the exact same character, just not comedic.
I'm talking about like the story arc. Woody Harrelson does not follow the same story arc.
No, he doesn't, but he's the same archetypical character.
Okay, but he doesn't follow
they're both those mentors to a young teen. Yeah, who's reserved.
But Woody Harrelson's kind of the fool character.
This is the exact same movie as Zombieland.
It is, yeah.
No, I'm talking about The Road. You're talking that he's a different character.
From Viggo Mortensen's The Road.
Yeah, that character has to die at the end. That's the arc of that character
in The Road. Yes.
Well, that archetype.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different, and
he almost dies in Zombieland. You believe what's revelatory about Zombieland is that character doesn't die. Because at the end, right, he's in the concession stand, with the shot, and you figure he's gonna die, right? Yeah. And that's because that's the track it's supposed to take, and then it just doesn't. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And
which I actually don't like that about the movie.
Oh, really?
Yes, because heaven forbid it does the thing that every other movie does about it.
No, there's archetypes for a reason.
But yes,
to be broken, right? You know,
I think he should have died.
That rule about stealing powers is lame.
The what?
No, nothing. Never mind.
What?
Keep going.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
No, I was going to say, it sounds
Where's my car, Nate?
if a movie doesn't follow your expected path, it's a bad movie. That's what it sounds like.
No, I think...
Just,
I think him surviving at the end of Zombieland, it was,
no, he should have died.
No, it at that moment, I was like, so they want to do a sequel. Instead of, wow, this is an interesting way to tell a story, I just thought, they want to do a sequel.
They made a comedy. He has to find, it's like, to them, they sat there and they said, what's more important to this character? His dying or his finding Twinkies? Honest to God, what's more important to this character is his finding Twinkies. His finding, that resolves his character more than anything else. Because Everybody's just talking to blobs.
Siri, where are you? Brian, can you like scoot in a little bit?
Absolutely not. In this way?
Do it. Yeah, towards Nate. Pretend you and Nate like each other.
No.
Babies.
Babies or dogs? Those are the bad. The things you're not supposed to touch.
Yeah, I mean.
That's the Weather Girls.
Oh, the weather girl. See, yeah, somebody's correct.
Bro, I have no idea who that is.
No, it's
The people who sang is Breaking
believe
Bad was
you.
the Weather Girls.
Yeah.
Because it starts off, it's like, hey, we're your Weather Girls. And then they like.
How often have you listened to this, Brian?